afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Concise Conversations with Cathy and Jackie on a whole new date. Welcome to the Thursday edition. From now on, we do plan on using Thursdays as our day for our conversation, just that way a few more people can probably join. So welcome once again. And today's guest is Paul Teske, CEO at the Education Impact Exchange. We are very excited and honored to have him share his expertise in the world of blended learning. So with that, I will kick it over to Cathy.
Thank you, Dakota. Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you're joining us on Thursday, and we're looking really forward to the conversation today with Paul Teske. Both Jackie and I have known Paul for some time now, and he's lent his expertise to so many wonderful ventures, including the Teaching Channel and others. The purpose of Concise Conversations is really to bring information and joy to our network members, and I think particularly today is going to be interesting. Paul, we are so delighted that you have joined us from Seattle. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I can feel the warmth emanating from the south. It's only 65 degrees over here.
You have now made everyone in Alabama envious, and you better beware, don't give them your address. They'll soon be headed your way. Paul, I know Jackie is as excited as I am about talking to you, and she's going to ask the first question.
Thank you, Cathy, and yes, welcome, Paul. It is just a wonderful day to have you in Alabama, albeit virtually. And as Cathy suggested, that might be the best way today. I'm excited to listen to you, Paul, and learn from you today, knowing the breadth of your experience and expertise in education and technology. And I'm thinking for many of our districts and schools, the real challenge as they approach this new school year is thinking about not just the usual, but also the possibility of blended learning, if not complete virtual learning again. But let's focus to begin with, if we could, on blended learning. I know you have a lot of experience and have thought a lot about this. So I'm just wondering, what would be some opening bits of advice you would give to people to ensure that kind of coherence and fluency between the face-to-face and the virtual?
Sure. Well, advice, I think when you're first starting out, go in with a sense of humor and also be really good with yourself because it takes a bit of learning to do. And there's different kinds of blended learning. Some of it is synchronous and some of it's asynchronous, right? So, and there's different models around that. You can have a station rotation model where kids will go around in different groups around doing different things, both online and offline. Teachers might interact with them during that time. There's also whole group rotations where everyone's going through these rotations at once. And then of course there's flipped learning, which is a type of blended learning, which I think is probably the best one to use right now, given the uncertainty that you have. And basically flipped learning is when the instructional component of what you're doing, sort of the direct instruction, is flipped. So instead of being in class and doing it, you take a recording of yourself, you send it off to your students, perhaps with a playlist and a set of readings, in which they can do that at home during their own time. If there's issues at home, but there's only one or two computers or a cell phone, they can watch those on their own time. So then when they get together with either a synchronous session that's face-to-face or online and remote, that's when they do those really great discussions. Jackie, you know a lot about discussions and questioning, get kids to talk and talk deeply about that type of work. So that's the type of work that is done during the synchronous time. And that can either be in class or outside of class. So you can do small group work, you know, via Zoom. You can just put them in their different chats and work together. And group work and projects can also be handled that way too. So it's a very flexible model. And but it takes some doing. It takes some work with families and kids to understand that model and their requirements of what they need to do at home. As well as getting teachers used to video and doing videos of themselves and actually curating really great playlists based on, you know, sets of criteria. So they're vetting that material well. So the flip model, I think, is probably the best one that people should be really keying into at this point. So yeah, and I know a lot of folks that have been using it also when not in a crisis mode, and they find it very valuable. So my advice would be smile a lot, bring your kids in, and remember that it's also building community as part of that. And video does help that quite a bit because it's an extension of you. You're still leading the class, and the kids get to see you in different lights, and you can have some fun with it.
You know, Paul, as listening to you, it sounds like this is the flipped learning is really the right. This is the right time for something like this, as we don't know whether we'll be able to do face to face. If we do, flip can work. If we can't, it sounds like it also serves the need, and I think that there's a lot of grace involved right now. Grace in people understanding we're all learning this ourselves. So we've been so intrigued with your knowledge and skills. We've asked you to develop some courses for us. Can you talk to us about the courses that are going to come online later this month?
Sure. Basically, they are set up as 3 different modules. They're kind of independent though, too. I think that's how we frame them. So the first one is around just wrapping the head around what is flipped learning. So they have the mental model and as well as the why behind doing it, especially in these times. Then it moves into the production of playlists. And folks will work together to develop playlists they can share because, as my grandma used to say, many hands make light work. And they can use those again and again, other people's during the year. But vetting those, they're very much of quality. And then analyzing them to see where you need to produce sort of guidance for students and how you produce that guidance. And some of that will come textually through various documents for viewing, like how do you do this? So you don't want the kids to be passive viewers of the work. You want them to be active viewers. And so you have to bring them into those types of practices. So that's the first one. The second module or course is around a theoretical framework called the community of inquiry model. That's right, the community of inquiry model, which is around, it's basically 3 presences. There's social presence, there's instructional presence, and cognitive presence. And those things need to be embodied within a course, anything that goes online, but it also works for blended. And you might notice that those are also things that teachers need to clue into when they're face-to-face. Community is key, right? If you don't have that buy-in with students, if you don't have that connection, it makes learning really difficult. So we analyze that model, and then we look at, if they were part of the first course, they would look at their playlist, see where those gaps are, where they themselves need to create videos. And then we go into video creation, and I'll do that with folks. I've been doing that for years back in teacher education, teaching channel. We did different types of videos, obviously, but getting teachers used to recording themselves it can be fun, really fun, and humorous. And so the students would, or the teachers would then create videos. And I have a bunch of free and very easy to use technologies that can help with that. So giving it a go, coming into those small groups again, and analyzing each other's videos and giving feedback for round 2. Oh, and then the third one is where Sarah Brown Wesling comes in. And that's in the facilitation of groups. And she'll be talking to you, I think, next week, which is how do you organize group work? How do you have online discussions as well as face-to-face and be sort of nimble and flexible in that realm? So it has this nice sort of evolution that really tackles what flipped classrooms are like and how to do blended learning.
Well, I'm excited, Paul. I think you have your first participant in these new courses. I'll be there. I am particularly interested in this whole issue of videotaping as a part of the blended, as a part of particularly asynchronous when we're looking at some of the designs that actually we're working on for ABPC networks. And I guess my first question about video production is not so much about the how, Paul, but it is about the what. What is the best choice for videotaping? In other words, if I have the options of students reading, students watching videos, students engaging in, let's say, a discussion board. What is it related to the other two, but what is it specifically that is appropriate for videotaping?
Mhm. Well, the first thing that people need to be aware of is time. Many studies have been focused on how long people actually watch. And it rounds out at about 6 minutes, and younger kids even less. So if you go in to your class and you have younger kids and you produce an hour-long video, they're not going to watch it. Let's just be clear. So you have to be very concise, and you have to think about what you can fit into that 6-minute time slot that you have. Then it goes precipitously down after that. So really what it becomes a practice in being incredibly concise. And I've noticed it just in the videos that I've been creating lately. It's like you do like 3 rounds of pruning out of your PowerPoints or Prezis or whatever you have, and try to get it as low as possible. And people will always ask you, well, can you shave another 30 seconds off this? So come prepared for that. The other is cognitive overload, which is connected to time, right? So you don't want to have thousands of things in your videos. You also want to keep it as simple as possible, and that's part of that conciseness factor. The other is watching out for those technical things. Make sure that your video is clear. Make sure your audio is up, because audio really matters. If you have a tinny audio or something squeaks or whatever, people are going to be fixated on that. So make sure that both those things are in line. The other is to simplify what's around you. Oftentimes when I'm working with folks, I say, if you're going to be bringing up anything to the side of you when you're creating a video, you want to make sure that you have a flat background. I do it with this background all the time. It's sort of not too busy, so it's fine. And I have limited room. I don't have a lot of white space in my house. So sometimes I know folks will even put up curtains behind them, or shower curtains or things like that, just to give it a flatter background. So there's the cognitive part of it. There's the instructional part. You need to be warm and friendly, and you shouldn't be afraid to be that way. I know a lot of teachers are super nervous, and when they are nervous, it gets amplified on the video. So take a few deep breaths, maybe do a little yoga, go for a run before you do it, come back nice and fresh, and be sure to smile and greet your students, because that's the emotional connection you have. The video is the proxy of you being face-to-face in the classroom. So all those things sort of have to come together to create a good video.
Wow, thank you, Paul. That sounds very doable. And, Cathy, I keep thinking videos can be talking heads too. So, we have to be careful with video that they don't become as boring as perhaps, just the reading would be. So right. I love the advice.
That's right. We all have our memories of college professors that I felt like sometimes they would put in, I'm dating myself, a cassette tape, and 50 minutes later you would get up, or an hour you would later. We don't want that. So Paul, one of the things that I'm coming to a realization about, and I really want your take on this, is that when, God willing, the world returns back to what might be a new normal, if there's a vaccine, or we actually can have confidence that we're going back to school, that things still will be changed, that will be changed forever, that these tools that we're learning to use now are things that can work just as well if we're in face-to-face learning. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I heard several folks talking about there's no such thing as a snow day anymore, which means that, teachers are becoming quite adept at moving online and being really flexible and nimble in their work. I would hope that they would see video as a great tool. I hope that they become more nuanced in their selections of videos that they present to their students. And I would also hope that they would not be afraid to send messages or communicate with family via video as well. And I think all of that will come to fruition. I think they become really great at sort of navigating things like Edpuzzle and Jamboard and Flipgrid. And those things are things that that resonate with the kids. It's also meeting them where they are. Kids are really screen connected, and You put on a video, they're riveted, even if it's of you. Just make sure it's not 6 minutes long, but you have to, or less, or over 6 minutes long. That's what I should say. But I would hope that teachers become more comfortable with these mediums and better serve their students that way.
Paul, you have given us so much to think about today. I can't believe how these 15 minutes have just zipped past us. You gave me a new understanding of blended learning. I'm going to have to think more about how blended can occur, whether you're completely online or whether you're, face-to-face and offline. You have certainly enhanced my understanding of what might make for a good video and a little bit about when and how to use it, but I'm especially excited that you have just whetted my appetite to want to join in the courses that you're planning first for Alabama educators, but certainly for anyone who would join in with us. I know that we will all learn a lot, and thank you so much for previewing some of that for us today.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to you being in the class, Jackie. That ought to be fun.
It'd be great.
So we'll be announcing more information about the classes that will begin at the end of this month. So stay tuned for that. And Paul, thank you so much. We really enjoyed this time with you, and we're looking forward to learning with you virtually. So Dakota, what's on the deck for next week?
Right, so Paul kind of previewed it, and I don't think she needs much of an introduction, but Sarah Brown-Wessling will be joining us next week, and we're very excited to have her. So make sure you tune in next week, Thursday at 1 o'clock Central Time. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, email me at dakota@aplusala.org. Paul, thanks again for joining us, and thank you to all of our guests as well.
Thanks for having me.